everybody, and welcome to the Championship Showcase, Secrets for Success from the playing field of competition to the field of life. We are speaking with inspirational sports leaders, former athletes, coaches, administrators, sports psychologists, and related professionals who are sharing their life strategies and empowering messages of hope and purpose to support those athletes that are seeking to make a successful transition from the playing field of competition to the field of life. My name is Dominic Militello. We're so glad you could join us. We are fortunate to have a special guest with us on the Championship Showcase, so let's jump right in. Today we are speaking with the remarkable Coach Bob Ladouceur. In 34 years at De La Salle High School in Concord, California, legendary football coach Bob Ladouceur has established himself as one of the most successful high school coaches in the country. His remarkable 399, 25-3 career record is the most victories in California history. He also holds the record for the best winning percentage, .923, of all high school football coaches in the nation, with over 200 wins. Coach Ladouceur has more North Coast section titles, 29, than career losses at 25, and has never had a losing season. Under Coach Ladouceur's leadership, De La Salle held an astounding 151-game win streak, which is the subject of Sony Pictures' motion picture, When the Game Stands Tall, based on the book by Neil Hayes. Coach Lad's first book, Chasing Perfection, The Principles Behind Winning Football, the De La Salle Way, was recently released online and is now available in bookstores. In collaboration with Neil Hayes, author of When the Game Stands Tall, Coach Lad and his staff have put in writing the most comprehensive and detailed look at the way the storied De La Salle football program is run. Some notable awards for Coach Lad. 3 times he's been named the National High School Coach of the Year by USA Today. He was the NFL's first Don Shula National High School Coach of the Year. Here in the Warren Uckel Educator of the Year Award for Contra Costa County. He was an inductee to the San Jose State University Athletic Hall of Fame and the National Federation of State High School Associations Hall of Fame. He was an ESPN ESPY nominee for Coach of the Year, and most recently was honored with the induction to the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame. We're very fortunate to have Coach Bob Ladouceur with us. Coach, welcome to the Championship Showcase.
Thanks, Dom. I'm real happy to be here and share things that you might be interested in and your listeners.
Well, we know you're very busy, and we only have not too much time, but we'll try to squeeze as much in as we can, Coach. Coach, before we get into it, I know there's a lot of information that we could dive into, but for those that aren't as familiar with you as we are, can you give us a little bit about your upbringing and your background?
Well, yeah, I was born in Detroit, Michigan, and lived there till I was 12. My dad got transferred to California in the Bay Area here, and we settled in the Bay Area right near Oakland. It's called San Ramon, a suburb. And I just grew up and went to high school and at San Ramon High School and played baseball and football. And my freshman year of college, I went to the University of Utah and played football there on a freshman football team when they had freshman football teams. And then I transferred after 1 year back to the Bay Area and finished my schooling at San Jose State University and played for them and finished my actual playing day career there. I was out of college. I really wasn't planning on coaching. I wasn't planning on actually getting into athletics at all. I went to work for the county in the probation department, and I found out that they took a lot of budget cuts in the second year I was there, and I was looking at losing my job, so I started looking. And I found an opening in the paper for a football coach at De La Salle High School, a school that really never had a successful football program, and it was relatively new. They'd only been playing varsity football for like 4 or 5 years. They never had a winning season. They were pretty low men on the totem pole, and I thought, what the hell, I'll give it a shot, because I really felt confident about my football skills and what I learned. And just lo and behold, they took a chance on me and hired me as a teacher of religion and a football coach. And I took off from there in 1979. And my first team, I had 28 kids on the team, and we had our first winning season. We went 6-3 that year. So it went up from there, and I established a lot of off-season stuff that they never had, and particularly a fairly regimented and disciplined off-season conditioning program that helped us a lot, and just got better and better as the years went by.
Well, that's great. Thanks for sharing that background, Coach. Really appreciate it. We have the topic we're talking about is athletes and their transition from the field into the real world. We'll get into that in just a second, but you talked about establishing a culture at De La Salle. What could you say? I know there's people out there that ask me all the time, what was it specifically, or, and as succinctly as you can, I guess, that you and your staff did to go 12 straight years and capture the longest winning streak in history of high school sports at 151 games? Can you tell us as briefly as you can what enabled you guys to do that?
Yeah, it was, I think that it was a byproduct of the years we put in prior to that when that streak started. And that streak started in the season of 92 and ended in the season of 2004. And, a lot of work had been done prior to that 92 season. I mean, we established a way of doing things that kind of set the stage and set the tone for accomplishing something like that. And it was like you said, it was changing the culture and how we approached athletics at the school. And it was it became more like I didn't look at it. I never concentrated on winning, winning games. And even when we were in the streak, I never even talked about wins or talked about the streak or I never talked to the kids about let's keep the streak alive or let's win another game, and never approached it that way. And whether we were in the streak or not, I never approached things that way. I always approached it like, where can we hit our ceiling? What do we need to do to be the best we can be? And I know that sounds cliched and everything, but that's truly what we concentrated on, is the individual and their skill development. And I think when you start taking care of those things and all the real little things that make a person or player better, then the outcome usually is winning. So what we did is we just, assessed all their talent and got them all together, and we did a tremendous amount of coaching and teaching, and not just in football skills, but life skills and social skills too. And when you put it all together and mix it all together, the formula usually comes out pretty good. And that's how we approached it.
Well, there's evidence of that, obviously, with the streak and the success you've had over the last 34, 35 years. The other question that we need to ask you, Coach, is why haven't you gone on to coach at the college or pro level?
Well, I never felt that I was cut out to do that. That's really not kind of my personality type. I'm a relatively pretty quiet guy and introverted. What I wanted to do was just work with the kids here and concentrate on the game of football and not have a lot of outside distractions or outside interests going on while I was concentrating on doing that. I really liked the age group. I felt that, it was a good fit for me. I felt in a lot of ways as I went forward that this is what I was meant to do. And I never really had the desire to stand on the Rose Bowl floor and coach a game there, or, make it to the NFL and try to carve my way out there or something like that. I just, I did it out of love for the game and love for what I was doing. I never wanted to get myself in a situation where I had to do it. And I was doing it for survival and to make ends meet and things like that. So, I felt like if I put all that time in it and I really wasn't happy doing it, or, I was forced to do it, I would lose my passion for the game, and I didn't want to do that.
Well, it sounds like you certainly haven't lost your passion, Coach. So, well, congratulations and all that. Let's dive into a little bit more about your sports background as an athlete growing up. Were you always competitive from an early age?
I know from an early age I just loved the game of football. I distinctly remember back in Detroit when I was a little boy, and I'm talking probably from age 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right around there, that, I just loved playing football. And I had the little plastic Hutch helmets and plastic shoulder pads. And we used to go out, and back in those days, kids were out all the time, and we'd pick up our own tackle football games. And I just loved it. I loved the contact. I loved the tackling and trying to get free running with the football, things like that. It was invigorating. It was fun. And I don't know if it was just, it was just inherent to my interest level. And I just enjoyed it so much. It was by far my favorite sport. And I always wanted to continue that as I went forward and got older. And it was just something that I don't know. Again, I was just cut out to do. I think all of us have some sort of niche or some sort of thing that grabs us or that we're good at, that we excel in. And I just knew from an early age that this is kind of what I really love doing. And I never dreamed of coaching or anything like that. I just did it for the fun part of it. So I also played baseball. I loved baseball, and I ran track in school, and I enjoyed those sports too. So yeah, I loved to compete. I liked it. I wouldn't say I was a fierce competitor. I just enjoyed the sport part of it.
And did you have, or not did you have, who were the coaches, I should say, that influenced you or that you gravitated toward as a player, and then maybe had some influence on you later on?
Well, I think that without a doubt, my high school and college coaches were really good. I mean, my high school coach was an old school guy. We did a lot of hitting. We did a lot of tackling, a lot of fundamental stuff. And I thought, as I went forward, I didn't pattern myself after his practices or, exactly what we were doing, but I understood that what I learned from him was it was truly sports is a fundamental game. No matter what sport you're playing, you have to get the minutia and the techniques down, and there's a science to it. There's a real method to the madness. And just to go out and as a football coach and all right, let's hit, let's get fired up and all that stuff. It's just not enough. It's not the center. It's not the core of what you should be concentrating on. The center and core should be the minutia of playing your positions. And every position has a certain science to it. It has a certain real technical, minute, no room for error type of dynamic to it. And we always approached football that way, is we're going to be in the right spot, we're going to be doing the right thing, we're going to be reading the right keys, we're going to be taking the proper steps, and we're going to get ourselves in the right position. All those things that will lead to success, that will lead to like I said before, winning. And I don't think coaches concentrate enough on that, especially at the youth level or high school level. And in a lot of ways too, I don't think coaches even know. A lot of coaches don't even know what they're looking for or looking at when you're working on those things.
Right. So it sounds like there's an opportunity there for a coach. The coach's kind of program maybe that needs to be more available out there. It sounds like.
Yeah, I don't think you have to be like some dynamic personality or, some guy that is real charismatic, because I'm neither of those. But what I did have is a good working knowledge of the game and how it all fits together, and the certain techniques and things that kids need in order to perform their position well and be successful in their position. And most definitely as a head coach, if you don't have that kind of knowledge and have that kind of background, I don't see how you could ever be successful. I mean, you have to be able to step in as a head coach and fix things, and if that's the offensive line, so be it. If it's a defensive technique, that's it too. You have to step into any position and be able to troubleshoot and improve that player.
Sure. All life skills, whether you're in sport or not. Coach, talk to us a little bit about your when the realization came that maybe you weren't going to go to the next level after college, and you started thinking about what was next for you. It wasn't coaching, it's you said from early on, but when you realized that football wasn't going to be a way that you're going to make a living as a player, what were your thoughts about what came next, and how did you react to that?
I knew myself, and I knew that I was never going to be a professional athlete. I just didn't have the kind of talent and skills to do it. But I felt like I could teach it. I understood the game, and I just wasn't fast enough or big enough or quick enough to do it, or athletic enough. It's just knowing yourself and knowing what your limitations are and knowing what you're capable of doing that I think leads to personal success in your life. It's understanding yourself and accepting your shortcomings and possibly working on them if you can. If you can't, just accepting that's who you are, and then building on your strengths and what you're good at, and trying to go in a direction that where you can use your strengths to your advantage and possibly even make a living from it. And even though I couldn't play as a professional athlete or participate as one, I was able to coach and make a living off that. So, it was, I never made a lot of money, but I made a comfortable living and bought my home and sent my kids to college and all the stuff that I think any person would be happy to be able to do.
Right, exactly. And it's not necessarily about the money. It's about enjoying the experience like you're talking about. You keep talking about the love for the game and love what you're doing and all that. But coaching didn't come to you right away from what you told us earlier. You saw an ad in the paper, you said. So what was that transition like from graduating from college as a football athlete, then kind of getting out there into the real world and trying to figure out, you mentioned some budget cuts kind of led you to looking at something different, and you almost stumbled into coaching. Were you going through any kind of, period there in your life where you're a little bit going, what am I going to do, or what do I want to do, and then you just read the paper and it popped into your life, or what was going on at that time of your life, I guess?
Well, I really didn't have a lot of responsibility. I didn't have a home. I didn't have a mortgage. I was renting. I was living in an apartment. I was married at the time, and I didn't have any kids, so I never felt any pressure to make a living I never felt the pressure that I was going to live out on the streets or something like that. I felt confident enough or talented enough to do something, and so I really didn't worry about it. I just thought, keep your head up and eyes open for opportunity that might come along or that, might interest you. I was never afraid to go back to school. I did go back to school and got my master's degree, but even when I was at De La Salle and coaching, I continued my education. I went back to school, and I did it for opportunities that might come up down the road that would require that I have an advanced degree, and for those reasons, I was kind of preparing myself. If something came up, I'd have some options, and I'd have the background necessary to fulfill the job requirements or whatever the job may want from me. So, I always felt that education was the key. That anybody that finishes their education or continues their education, it just tells people and shows people that you have that fortitude, that you have that stick-to-itness, that you'll finish something that you started, or that you're interested in just learning more things. And to an employer or to somebody who wants to partner with you, that thought that, this guy's open to learning, he's open to growth, I think it's a great selling point. I think it's it's something you're looking for. If I was to partner with somebody, I'd be looking for that. Somebody who's always willing to learn and expand.
Be coachable, sounds like, too. Somebody's coachable.
Yeah, not be pig-headed. Be willing to say, hey, I learned something I didn't know before. There's a certain amount of humility in gaining knowledge. I mean, as I went through my education as a coach, and even through life, what the biggest revelation that I got from all of it was, hey, I really don't know that much. It's the more experience you gain, the more knowledge you gain, the more you realize how little you know. And I think that's a big part of humility. It's a big part of being wise. That I got to go out and find out more, and it kind of makes you hungry to get out and learn more things. I wish I had more time to get into different areas. I'd like to know more history. I'd like to know more poetry. I'd like to know more, read more novels and things like that. It's just a time factor. I really, I always saying eventually I'm going to get to all that stuff. I'm going to get more in depth into that stuff. And, and I've picked up those things, those type of things as I've gone through life, but not to the degree where I'd really like to get into it. I suppose I'd have to be retired to do it, but I still chip away at it.
You're listening to the Championship Showcase, Secrets for Success from the Playing Field of Competition to the Field of Life. We're speaking with legendary Coach Bob Ladouceur. Coach, talk to us a little bit about leadership, accountability, and belief systems. How important are those within your program, and do you feel in life as well? Leadership, accountability, and belief systems.
Well, I always felt like that's a lot, man. That's a broad swipe, and I think each has its own category. So belief systems. Let's start with that. Repeat those again, because I want to cover every one of them.
Okay, good. I appreciate it. I had leadership first.
All right. As soon as I finish that, give me the next one, because I'll forget it. All right.
I will.
My leadership style is not autocratic, which means, I'm going to make all the decisions. Everything's going to run through me. I'm the head guy. I want to establish myself as the guy that's going to get all the accolades, or I'm going to establish myself as the figurehead. I want everybody to know I'm running the show. I never worked that way. I always tried to surround myself with guys that were smart, coaches that were good, worked with kids, and I was real fortunate that I was able to do that. I think that's part of my personality, too, that I can recognize that in people and say, this guy's going to be really good doing this. And I try to get him close to me. I was fortunate to have a coach, Terry Edson, that worked with me for 32 years, that was outstanding, and he never wanted to move on. He never wanted to go anywhere else because I gave him a lot of responsibility. Ran our defense and ran our special teams for all those years. It's not that I didn't help him or collaborate with him, but he ran it. He ran with it, and there was a lot of times I really didn't have any input for him or anything. He was confident, he did what he was able to do. And I always felt like, I never made a decision, an important decision, without checking with my coaches first. I always wanted their opinion. I always wanted to know what they thought. And a lot of times, I would say that 90% of the decisions I made, when I asked and we collaborated and we met, was the consensus, what everybody felt we should do. And I thought that had two benefits to it. One, I felt 8 heads were better than one, and I felt like sometimes they did. They came up with ideas I never even thought about. So using your resources is important, and including them. And the second benefit from it was you get buy-in from those guys. They believe that they are a part of the whole process. They're part of the decision-making process or part of the planning process. And I understand there were times where I had to veto some things and say, well, I don't want to go in that direction. I think we should go in this direction. But not very often. And, it's just, I think it's wise to be democratic in your leadership and include everybody. I think they respect you for that. You're respecting their ideas. You're respecting the human being. And the only key is you gotta get the right guys around you. That's critical. And you got a bad feeling about somebody, or you think, I don't know, this guy's pretty stubborn, or this guy's pretty pig-headed, or this guy, you know, he thinks he knows everything and he really doesn't. Not a good hire. It's just not a good hire. So you have to have those guys that are willing to learn, that understand they don't have all the answers, that want to grow in the position, those type of things. So leadership is, you know, it's critical, and you got to know how to be a good leader, and that, I think, it means empowering people.
Beautiful, beautiful. Accountability.
Accountability is, you know, kind of like in the philosophy. I mean, why are you here? Why are you doing this? Why do you want to do it? What are you getting out of it? What do you want to get out of it? You know, those type of things. And I never really wanted to have a coach that was climbing the coaching ladder. You know, like, well, I'd eventually like to get out, like that type of idea. I'd like to eventually get into Division I football. And how I always felt about that was, well, I think I kind of thought, well, then go do that right now. You don't have to go through high school to do that. You know, and I always wanted to coach for different reasons. I didn't want the adulation or the recognition or anything like that. I wanted to create a team of guys that really enjoyed each other, loved each other, respected each other, and then went out and competed together at a maximum high level. That was my goals. Those were my goals. And make those guys accountable to each other and understand that they're just a part of the whole, and that their contribution is critical to the success of the football team, no matter what position you're in. So accountability is giving people a job too. You know, your players. It's like you're a third string guy, but your job is to be a second string guy by the end of the season, or maybe a first string guy, or you're a second string guy, and you've got to understand that your job this year is going to be preparing first string guys for competition, and in the process, make yourself better and prepare yourself for being a first string guy down the road. So they have to have their roles defined, and they have to understand where they stand in the program and what they should be after going forward. And that's the accountability factor.
And it sounds like it filters down, Coach, from not just, from you, but your staff down to your players, and it becomes ingrained or embedded in the program itself, not just from season to season, but from year to year, it sounds like.
Sure. And definitely it becomes where kids, you got to get kids or your teammates holding each other accountable. I always tell the kids and told my teams, the harder I have to work, the worse we're going to be. And you guys are going to have to take coaching responsibilities over. Part of the things that I really pride our teams on, the best teams I ever had, turned out kids were coaching other kids, watching each other, helping each other. And, you know, I wanted to foster that type of environment and responsibility to them. I said, I can't see everything out here. Even all 8 coaches, we can't see everything out here. You guys are going to have to help each other. We're going to have to help each other. You're going to have to watch your position, watch the guy in front of you. You know, it's just, and help them with their technique. They all know the technique. They all know what they're supposed to be doing. You got to watch your guys, and you got to help them too. And when we get that going, it's a pretty special thing, and we get a lot better as we go. And I've had teams that wouldn't do that, and subsequently they weren't as good as they should have been.
Right. Okay, Coach, the last one, belief systems.
Yeah. that goes along with that idea of asking the coaches, why are you here?
Right.
You know, and why are you doing this as opposed to something else? Belief systems, I have a feeling, I have a strong belief that our teams are going to be as good as our collective personalities. And what I mean by that is, what are you bringing to this team? What kind of self are you bringing to this team? Are you after recognition? Are you after status? Are you after accolades? Is this just a stepping stone for you? Or are you going to live in the moment and embrace everything that we have to offer here? So it's kind of like, that's the belief system. You know, what are you bringing? And that's part of what I enjoy doing as a coach and have enjoyed doing. It's not just working on their athletic skills, but working on their social skills and working on their life skills as far as what kind of, not what do you want to do or where do you want to go or what job do you want to have, but what kind of person do you want to be? You know, do you want to be a guy that can be depended on? Do you want to be a guy that people love? Do you want to be a guy that's looked upon as a helper, somebody that's going to, you know, extend themselves to you, and or you're going to extend yourself to other people? And, you know, what kind of guy do you want to be? And you're going to be the party guy, the selfish guy, the egoist. You know, there's a lot of directions you can go in, and there's a lot of directions athletes go in. And I want those guys to look at themselves and ask those questions. And if someone's going down a path that I don't think is healthy or right, we work on those guys. We work on them one-on-one. We pull them in, try to hold up a mirror to them, not literally, but figuratively, and get them to see what they're like. And, you know, give them some ideas where they can grow and change a little bit. So that's that belief system.
No, that's great stuff, Coach. Let's talk, Coach, if you could, for the sake of those that are listening, those athletes out there that are maybe about to go into their transition away from sport or in it right now, or maybe struggling in it right now to find that purpose after sport, what are your thoughts around that?
Don't be afraid, because use the skills that you learned in competition and preparation for your sport, and they're all transferable. You can use those. Those go with you through life. Those go through with you wherever you go. And don't be afraid to, you know, it's not as difficult as we make it out to be. You may have to learn different skills, and you may have to go back to school. You may have to, you know, you get into a company or get into an organization, you're going to have to learn all about it. But that's true for everybody. It's not just the athlete, it's everyone. And, you know, your skills will carry you. It's what made you a great competitor or a great athlete. It can be used for whatever else you go into. It's transferable. I know that it's difficult to begin with, to switch gears like that. But once you get into it, it's not that hard. I did that myself. In my careers, my career took a total different direction than where I was going. Schooling wise and everything. I was like, oh man, I'm not prepared for this job, but I kind of learned on the run and learned as I went, and it can be done. So the biggest joy we get is when we get our graduates back and kids that have played for us. Shoot, they're 40 years old now, in their 40s, a lot of them, and couples, you know, when I was coaching, they're in their 50s now too. And how successful they've become, and how, you know, good family guys, working good jobs, giving back to the school. You know, they've become very successful, and they look back on their days of competing and playing here as that training ground, that ground that they learned how to do those things, learned how to step out and be bold and use their skills, their people skills, or their work habits and all those things, and apply them to that everyday life that we live as we go forward. I make it clear to those kids that if this is the biggest thing and the greatest thing you're ever going to do, playing here at Del Sal, that's going to be a pretty sad and empty life. I go, this is just a trial run. This is a training ground for you guys. And I believe that wholeheartedly.
What about that same philosophy for guys that play at the college or even the professional level? A lot of people will say, you know, again, your best times are ahead of you, not what you've done or whatnot. What would you say to those guys, those athletes that have made a lot of money, that have played in the Super Bowl or, you know, in the World Series or whatever it might be, and then a struggle trying to find something after that?
Well, I've had three players for me that did play in the Super Bowl, and all three of them got Super Bowl rings. And Monty Toomer, Aaron Taylor, Doug Bryan, and then I've had others that are currently playing in the NFL and have played quite a few years in the NFL, not just a cup of coffee. And I'm real proud of all of those guys. They never let the league or professional sports define who they were. I know it defines some of them, which I think is okay. Like, hey, I'm a professional athlete. That's something to be proud of. But to have that define them to their core is dangerous, and it retards your growth process. I've seen it happen to some of our guys. I think in a lot of ways professional sports is a false world in some sense that, you're worshipped as a hero. You're worshipped as, an elite athlete, and our country and our people in our society, they love that. They love their sports, and they look at their sports heroes and their professional athletes as iconic. And I understand that, and you're at the top of your profession. But you can't let that fully define who you are. And if you do, it totally retards your growth process as far as as a person, decisions you make, how you think of yourself, your future, all those things. It has a dramatic effect on it. And, Aaron Taylor's a good resource for that. He kind of got caught up in that NFL hoopla and that lifestyle of, being, the top dog. And, once he got out of the league, kind of went on his own journey. He went around the world, traveled around third world countries, and did a lot of interesting things that brought him back to center. And he kind of did it on his own. But, it's doable, but I'd have to say that in the end, it's not, what you're going to be remembered for is not how many touchdowns you scored or tackles you made or sacks you made. You're going to be remembered for and valued for what kind of person you were. Were you a good guy, a good teammate, a contributor, someone who cared, someone who was, caring, someone who, no matter who was around them, the rich, the poor, the smart, the not so smart, were those people important to them? Did they extend themselves to those people? Those are the things you're going to be remembered for. And those are the things that are going to give you life value. So, it's okay to be proud of yourself as an elite athlete, but to have it define totally who you are is dangerous.
Well, Coach, we appreciate your words. We're just about out of time, and we know you have a busy schedule. We appreciate the time you've given us. Any last thoughts on anything we've talked about today that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
No, I just, the only thing I would have to say is I made a life out of football and athletics. And it's been a rewarding life. It's been something I am proud of, and I've enjoyed. I could look back on with fond memories and things like that, but I think I could have had success too, doing it in a way that was maybe not so right. Being tyrannical, being insistent, being an autocrat rather than a democrat, and I think I would have had success on the field doing it that way too. But that's not who I was, and that's not how I wanted to do it. Kind of like step on people's heads to get desired results. I wanted to be shoulder to shoulder with those guys and just do it that way. And it's made all the difference in the world. So again, it would be like, are you going to do it being true to yourself and trying to be the best person you can be?
Right. Beautiful stuff. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention that you recently got married. How's new marriage working for you?
Oh, it's great. You married a great girl that's, ironically loves sports, which is kind of nice. And, very supportive, and we both support each other and our interests. And you know, she's expanded my world in a lot of ways too. She's an English teacher, and you know, is involved in a lot of things that I've always been interested in, but didn't know a lot about. And so we share each other's lives in a really unique way.
Well, that's great, Coach. We congratulate you on all the success you've had and all the continued success. We appreciate your time today. Everyone, I hope you've enjoyed our conversation with the incredible Coach Bob Ladouceur. I know I have. You've been listening to the Championship Showcase, Secrets for Success, from the playing field of competition to the field of life. We want to thank Coach Ladouceur for joining us, and we encourage all of those of you who are out there who feel might need some assistance through your career transition. Please get the help you need. You have purpose and you have value, and for now, we wish you all the best always. Again, for Coach Ladouceur's Dominic Militello, you've been listening to the Championship Showcase. We'll talk to you next time.